Hi everyone! This video will show you how to integrate Quest Machine with More Mountains TopDown Engine. We start with a new empty project. I'll first import Quest Machine. Then I'll import TopDown Engine. I'll fast forward through some of this import. While this is importing, I'll remind you that there are plenty of video tutorials on the Pixel Crusher's website that covers Quest Machine in general. You can also ask questions on the Pixel Crusher's forum or Discord server. When that's done, we need to import 4 integration packages. The first 2 are in Plugins, Pixel Crusher's Common Third-Party Support. Import Inventory Engine Support, and Top-Down Engine Support. Then in Plugins Pixel Crusher's Quest Machine Third-Party Support, import Inventory Engine Support, and Top-Down Engine Support. This will import files into Assets, Pixel Crushers, Quest Machine, Third-Party Support, Top-Down Engine Support. It includes a PDF manual, but we'll go through most of it in this video tutorial. If you haven't used Quest Machine before, the welcome window should pop up automatically. Otherwise, you can select it from the menu item. Tick 2D Physics if you're making a 2D game. So here's the folder where the integration is. First, let's play the example scene. This example scene should give you a general idea of what the end result of the tutorial will look like. Here's the quest giver giving the quest. And once we accept, we can see the quest in our journal. Alright. Exit out of play mode, and we'll set up Quest Machine from scratch in the original Koala Dungeon scene. Open up the Koala Dungeon scene. Then navigate in the project view to Plugins, Pixel Crushers, Quest Machine, Prefabs, and add the Quest Machine prefab to the scene. This is a persistent singleton, so you can make a prefab variant and add it to each of your scenes to easily play those scenes directly in play mode. Add a pause top-down component to the game object. This component lets you pause or disable player input while Quest Machine is showing dialogue. In this scene, let's leave gameplay running and just disable the player's input during dialogue. The component also lets you specify animator parameters to control on the player prefab to stop things like run cycles when they engage in dialogue. These will vary depending on your player, but by default they're set up to work with the Koala prefab. Next, we'll create a folder for our tutorial files. Create a Quest database in this folder. And assign it to the Quest Machine prefab. It's important to add your quests to the Quest database because this is how Quest Machine can restore quest journals containing quests that aren't defined in the current scene. Then for the tutorial, we'll create 2 quests. Click New and make the first quest a kill quest. This will open the quest editor window, which I'll need to drag in from my other screen. Then we'll make a second quest that's an item collection quest. We'll fill in the details of these quests later, but first let's set up the player prefab and the quest giver. In a regular top-down scene, the level manager instantiates players from a player prefab. So let's locate that prefab, duplicate it so that we can customize the duplicated version. Go ahead and move the duplicate to our tutorial folder. Then we'll add a quest journal component. The quest journal holds the player's active and completed quests. In the ID section, we'll set the ID to player, and we'll also assign a portrait image to use in UIs. For this, we'll just use the first image in the player's sprite sheet. You can leave UI settings unchanged, in which case it'll use the defaults on the Quest Machine game object. Under Save Settings, make sure that Include in Saved Games is ticked and set the save key to a unique key under which the data will be saved. You can leave other settings as is. Go ahead and save the prefab. Next, we'll set up a UI button that the player can use to toggle the journal UI. I'll just put it in the lower right-hand corner for now. And let's also map the hotkey J to this button. So add a Quest Journal button component and add a UI button key trigger. Set the button key trigger's key to J. On the button component, configure onClick to call the Quest Journal button's Quest Journal button toggle journal UI method. And finally, on the level manager, assign our customized player prefab to the player prefabs list. And let's give this a test. So if I press J, it toggles the journal UI on and off. Next, we'll set up the quest giver. Locate the guide game object. We're going to replace the dialog zone with our own quest dialog zone. So create a new child game object. Add a trigger collider. And I'll switch to scene view to make it easier to see it. Then add a button activated component so that we can interact with this quest giver in the normal top-down engine way. We'll want to use the same prompt image, so I'll copy that from the original dialog zone. There we go, and I'll also untick Always Show Prompt. And then we'll go back to the guide parent game object. On the guide, add a quest giver component. We'll set the ID to guide and also assign a portrait image. Under Save Settings, set a unique key under which to save the guide's quest list. We can also set some default text in the dialog content fields. As with the player's quest journal, we'll leave the quest dialog UI unassigned here so that it will use the default UIs assigned to the quest machine game object. And last, for the quest giver, we'll assign those two quests. These are the quests that the guide can give to the player. I'd like the kill quest to go on top since that's the one that we're going to edit first. Back on our button activated component, configure the onActivated event to call the quest giver's start dialog with player method. Now let's test this and make sure that we can talk to the quest giver and see at least the beginnings of those two quests. Alright, that's working, so let's move on. The next thing we'll do is work on the kill quest. To do this, we'll work in the quest editor window. To open the quest editor window, you can double-click on a quest asset, choose the window from the Tools menu, or click the Edit button next to the quest name in any quest list. In the quest's main info section, let's set the title to something that looks a little nicer, such as Kill 3 Ninjas. There are plenty of other settings that you can set here too, and they all have hover tooltips as well as being explained in the PDF manual. Next, we'll set up the offer text. The quickest way to get started is to click the Add Default Content button. Then we can fill in the rest specific to this quest. Set the body text to, "Those ninjas have taken over the dungeon. Will you show them who's boss by taking out 3 of them?" We're going to offer a reward for this quest. We could select body text and add some more body text, but let's make it a little bit nicer. I'm going to get rid of this body text and add icon content instead. For the image, we'll choose a coin, we'll set the caption to coins and the count to 3. Now we need to set the text that's shown at various states of the quest. The quest's main info can show text, and each quest node can show its own text. Typically on the main info, I just set headings and let the quest nodes contain the text that's actually relevant to the current states of the quest. So I'll set the headings here, and then before we get to the nodes, I'm going to add a counter to keep track of how many ninjas the player has killed. In the counters section, add a new counter and call it Ninjas Killed. Set the max value to 3, and we'll increment this using Quest Machine's message system. So set the message to Killed and the parameter to Ninja. When this message is received, it will modify the counter by the literal value of +1. In other words, it'll increment the counter. Now we'll create the nodes. Right-click on the Start node and select New Node Condition. Give this node an ID of Kill 3 Ninjas and set an internal name for your own use. Set the active state's body text to something like, "I need to kill 3 ninjas." We'll also include the current count in this. A nice way to do this is to use the Quest Reference window. Go to the Counters tab and click the button. This will copy to the clipboard a tag that at runtime will be replaced by the current counter value. Then paste it into your text. We'll also copy that same counter and put it in the HUD text. In dialog text, we'll set something like, "Show those ninjas who's boss." Now the way to complete this quest node is to get the ninjas killed counter to 3. So we'll add a counter condition to the node. We could set the required counter value to the literal value of 3, but it's more flexible to set it to the max value. That way, if you change the max value in the counter definition, you don't have to go in and change this number. Now we need a node that requires the player to go back to the quest giver. We could add another condition node, but it's simpler to use wizard return to quest giver. This will set up a return to quest giver condition node, optionally followed by a success node. Then we'll go ahead and arrange this in a nicer layout, and I'm going to change that ID to something a little shorter. Now we need to make our enemies send that message when they're killed. So let's find and select our enemies. Ideally, you do this on the prefab, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll do it right on the game objects in the scene. Add a quest control component and an on-death event component. We're going to configure the on-death event's on-death event to call a quest control method. But we need to do this individually on each of these, which is why it would normally be better to do this on the original prefab. For the event, select Quest Control Send to Message System. Make sure you select Send to Message System and not Send Message. Then we're going to specify that message that the quest is listening for, Killed Ninja. Repeat this for the other enemies, which I'll fast forward through here. And now we can test this quest out. When we accept the quest, you can see that the HUD shows kill 3 ninjas and 0 out of 3 killed. So now I need to hunt down 3 ninjas, and that one isn't one that I can get to right away, so we'll go down here. That's 1 down, and you can see that the HUD updated. And that's 2 down. It's been a while since I've played this map, so I may need to run around a little bit to find another ninja. In the meantime, looking at that HUD, it's kind of obscured by the weapon inventory display, but you can go into the Quest Machine prefab or the HUD prefab and move it down a bit so that they don't overlap. I won't bother to do that in this tutorial since you're probably going to go ahead and customize all of the UIs anyways. Alright, there's another one. And there you can see that the condition node changed. We're on the return to guide node now, which the wizard also configured to show an alert in the alert UI. So now we'll just go back and turn in that quest. We haven't set up the reward part of that quest yet, so the player won't get the reward yet. To set up the reward, go back to the return to guide node, or you could have gone to the success node, and in the true section, open up Actions and select Add Inventory Engine Item. Now we need to know the inventory to add it to, which we can find in the inventory's game objects. It's koala main inventory, which I'll copy here and paste into that node. And we need to find the ID of the coin item. That ID is koala coin. So back to our action, we'll paste in the inventory name and set the item name to koala coin and set the amount to 3. Now when this node becomes true, the player will get 3 coins. While we're here, let's set a UI icon for this quest. And now we'll move on to the item collection quest. I'll go ahead and change the name of this to something that looks better and choose a UI icon. Then we'll set up the offer text. We already set up a reward in the other quest, so for time's sake, let's not give a reward in this one. Add a condition node, and we'll call it Find Plasma Gun. We'll set up the body texts here. And for the condition, we'll use the inventory engine has items condition. We'll paste in the inventory name, require that the player has at least one of them, and then we'll find the ID of the plasma weapon and put it into that condition. And then we'll set up another return to quest giver node. Back on the main quest info, let's add those headings. In the main info's successful section, I'll sometimes add headings and a summary of what happened in the quest. And let's go back to the return to guide node and set the text there. Then let's give this a play. So here are our quests, and I'll pick up the Get Plasma Gun quest. You can see that the HUD shows that we have that quest. Then I'll go fight my way through and pick up the plasma gun. And you can see that the HUD changed to the Return to NPC node. That's also what shows here in the journal. I'll go ahead and turn in this quest and pick up the other quest. Now if I look in the journal, I can see that the Plasma Gun quest is showing as completed, and the Kill 3 Ninja quests is there too. There's one last step to integration, and that's integrating it with TopDown Engine's save system. To set up the integration, we're going to set up the full save system for Quest Machine, but we'll configure it to send its data to TopDown Engine's save system instead of saving its own complete saved games. Inspect your Quest Machine game object and add a save system component. Untick Save Current Scene, since TopDown Engine will handle scenes. We'll also need to add two dependency components. Add a JSON data serializer and a PlayerPrefs saved game data storer. This last component won't actually be used, but it silences a warning about the save system not having a data storer. Then add a save system top-down event listener and tick Handle Save Load Events. This is what connects Quest Machine's save system to TopDown Engine. Then there's one last configuration step. Open your loading screen scene. In this scene, we're going to replace the Scene Loading Manager with a custom subclass that integrates with Quest Machine's save system. The easiest way to do this is to set the inspector to debug mode and then drag in the Pixel Crusher's Scene Loading Manager to replace the original Scene Loading Manager script on that game object. This lets you switch a script with a subclass while retaining all of those assignments that are in the inspector. And that's the loading screen scene done. Now, the Koala Dungeon doesn't have multiple scenes, so we won't test it out in the tutorial, but that's it for the integration. If you have any questions about the integration, please feel free to drop the question in the Pixel Crushers Discord or forum. Thanks for watching.